Segment 3, Gold and Black Live. Tom Dienhart joins me, and it's snowy West Lafayette. It is a winter wonderland here, and we'll talk some Purdue football. Obviously, as that's Tom's beat and covers it like no other. But I think you and I both grew up in West Lafayette. So we've been through a few of these. There haven't been all that many. I think the last cancellation of Purdue men's basketball, 2007, after a Valentine's Day snowstorm prior, like a 16-incher that Purdue the next day plays Indiana and crushes Indiana. But you probably have some memories of that 78. Yeah. You were a young man in 78 blizzard that we have a little bit of stuff on your site. But talk about that the whole weather, Brian Newbert's still making his way back from Chicago, the Purdue basketball team making its way back from Indy on Friday. Didn't even get home on Thursday night, a day after they had played. But it's a funny thing in sports. You got to adjust what you're dealt with, and Purdue will have to adjust to that a little bit, I guess, tomorrow when they take on Michigan.
You're right, Alan. In 1970, you were a senior in high school.
Yeah.
In that Minnesota Purdue game with Michael Thompson, Kevin McHale, and Jim Dutcher. It was fun. A poster had that on our board this week, and you had responded to it. And I always get a kick out of hearing those names again. I reread your story that they linked to. And yeah, I remember that blizzard well, my friend. It was crazy. The snow. And then you had a reference to that same year, I believe, they had the coal strike, right?
Right.
And that really sticks because I do remember going to those afternoon weekday games. And of course, you said that year Purdue crushed Magic Johnson. That was his freshman year, and they crushed the Spartans in one of those games due to the coal strike. So again, the weather is always a funny, fickle thing, and Purdue had to deal with it this week. Obviously, going up to the Twin Cities, you always hope for safe travels for everybody. But yeah, I got a lot of good memories of walking through the snow and going to ball games at Mackey as well. And this was a doozy of a snowstorm. Everybody got across the Midwest through the Eastern Seaboard here recently.
Yeah, Rob Hummel in segment 1 talked about his travels. Of course, he's been doing Bulls games. It's good to be in a charter plane, but they got to Indy last night, which was a good thing. But and he's got a Pacers game tonight as well before doing Indiana and Illinois. He'll be back in Mackey on Tuesday. All right, it is February. We have 16 inches of snow on the ground, but at the end of this month, and that would be about 24 days from today, if my addition is correct, we're going to be starting spring football, and the Boilermakers have a lot of momentum to build on, obviously, with the great finish for Purdue, from a Purdue standpoint, winning the Music City Bowl, getting 9 victories. And yet there's also a lot of questions. You got a lot of staff members, coaching staff positions to fill. Obviously, vacancies with George Karlaftis and David Bell, Jalen Alexander, some others that won't be on the roster because they're gone. You've written a couple of good storylines. There are a lot of them heading into this spring practice. And then you throw in NIL and you throw in transfer portal, and there's lots to talk about and some new faces that you'll be watching come the end of this month.
Yeah, you're right. February 28th, that's a Monday. The start of spring football. Teams have 15 practices. They have to take place over a 34-day period. Expect spring practices to end on Saturday, April 9th. And a lot to get done, Alan. You talked about some of the things on Purdue's to-do list. The personnel losses are significant. 2 all-time greats have left the building, and George Karlaftis and David Bell. Of course, Jalen Alexander was the number 1 tackler on that defense last year, the linebacker. He's gone. So yeah, there's some key again personnel that are going to have to be replaced here, and the staff can start to do that obviously in spring drills. A great chance to start auditioning players and new faces too. Alan, you alluded to that. 7 transfers from the portal enrolled on campus will go through spring football, and the staff loves that because you can actually test drive the talent here this spring to see how good these guys are. And I suspect, Alan, at least 2 or 3 of these guys are going to start, and especially one of the cornerbacks. I think Reese Taylor from Indiana has a great chance to be one of the starting cornerbacks. And I really think that the guard from Florida International, Sione Finau, I think he's going to start in Tyler Witt's right guard spot without a doubt. And for sure, those two guys I think will start. And I also think there's maybe even a third guy. I think the wide receiver from Iowa, Tyrone Tracy. Like Reese Taylor, Allen, Tyrone Tracy's an Indianapolis area kid. Tyrone Tracy's a very talented wideout from again, Iowa, who started for the Hawkeyes. And given some of the flux and some of the unknowns at wide receiver, given Tracy's experience and talent level, I won't be shocked if he isn't a starter come September 3rd when Penn State comes to Ross-Ade Stadium for the opener.
Yeah, there's a lot of intrigue when it comes to that. One thing that we all watched, and I think was an important thing from Jeff Brom's coaching, not resume, but just the way he's run his program, that he obviously had a very successful hiring of defensive coaches last year. Of course, now, what is it? Two of those guys are gone on the defensive side, but it does speak to his ability. And I think you've talked about this, the confidence that he's going to, he's got a network of folks. He's been able to do a good job hiring. He's going to have to also replace Jamarcus Shepard, who is an effort recruiter, pepper pot, so to speak, as a receivers coach, has done an excellent job. But if I'm reading you, you're not wildly concerned just because it looks like Jeff Brom did a really good job last year. If he can continue to do that, it may be different, but you're going to have enough stability there to get some good names in here in West Lafayette.
Yeah, he's had to hire a lot of people since he took the Purdue job in 2017. So he's got an ample Rolodex, to use an antiquated term. People know what Rolodex is.
Yeah.
But yeah, two defensive staff openings, two offensive staff openings. I think, for my 2 cents, Alan, I think you can find your new play caller already on staff. I think Ron English should probably just get the play calling duties on defense. And I think they should just give the linebacking coaching job to David Elson, who's joined the staff last year as a quality control coach. David Elson's 50 years old. He's been a head coach at Western Kentucky, been a defensive coordinator in many places. Again, makes a lot of sense if they would do something like that. And of course, they still would have to hire a cornerbacks coach to replace James Adams. Offensively, talked about the openings there with Jamarcus Shepard gone. So you need a receivers coach. Neil Callaway, the assistant offensive line coach, retired. So that guy has to be replaced too. So expect something here soon. That's all I can tell you at this point, because again, February 28th, spring drills begin, and you got to have your staff assembled by then, you would think, right? So that's on the radar. Continue to sort of monitor that front. Alan, this week too was actually a signing day for football.
Yeah.
Of course, that used to be the signing day, right? The first Wednesday in November, or February, I should say, was a high holy day for college football fans when all the kids signed their letters of intent. Of course, now that's been sort of superseded by the December signing period. For Purdue, of course, not a ripple, nary a word. They thought they had a shot to get one kid, the nose tackle from College Station, Texas, Connor Lindgren. Again, they really liked this guy, and they thought they had a good shot to get him. But alas, Connor Lindgren signed with Texas Christian. He stayed in state to play for the Horned Frogs. So long story short, Alan, no news of note at all for Purdue's second signing day. Just to conclude, they signed 19 guys in December. They have 2 other guys, Jimmy Liston and a kicker, Julio Macias, who are going to eventually go on scholarship. They give you 21 kids coming in addition to the transfers we talked about as well. So speaking of transfers, as we all know, as we seemingly say every week, Purdue is always shopping the portal, Alan. I fully suspect priority number 1 is a running back. I really think they want to get a veteran running back. They've tried to get a couple, hasn't worked out. And I think priority number 2 is an offensive tackle. But I will always say this too, that Purdue is willing to take anybody if they think that person can help them right away, especially as a starter, regardless of position. So again, that's always something that's going to bubble up, I think. And Alan, too, at the end of spring football, everybody kind of gets an idea of what your role is on the team, right? You've been to 15 practices, they've seen everybody, and you could be a guy who's number 3 on the depth chart of position, say, hey, I got no shot here, I'm going to leave. So my point being is expect maybe a few more transfers out for the Boilermakers as well at the end of spring football. So these rosters, as we all know, this is a new age, and everything is very, very pliable and very immovable and ever changing as far as building these rosters for these college football teams.
Yeah, going to be it'll keep you busy. Not that you need to be busy, but yeah, it's funny. I like your attitude because you always take it. It's kind of like from our perspective, it's just new names. It's like Christmas every day in terms of guys to talk to and find out how this works. This is the 20 version of college football. It's the way it is, and you have to embrace that from that standpoint.
Real quick. On that front, of course, the transfer portal, as we all know, people have written and talked about this. It's really cannibalizing opportunities for high school kids, right? Yep. Fewer scholarships for these guys to get coming out of high school. And I think a perfect example of that is a kid that Purdue got a commitment from this week, a preferred walk-on wide receiver from Zionsville, Indiana, named Trey Firestone. 6'2", 6'3", 200-pound kid. Everybody tells me this is a guy that under normal circumstances would have been a scholarship player. He's coming to Purdue as a walk-on. And that's the kind of kid I think that's going to fly under your radar, but maybe in a year or two, again, this Trey Firestone kid could be a guy that works his way in that wide receiver rotation.
Yeah, it's just interesting because the personnel guys, you're going to need a staff of about, I don't know, and they do have that now in college football. But man, you got to be watching preferred walk-on. You got to be watching high school sports in a different way because you don't have as many scholarships. But then how you deal with the transfer portal, I don't know how you do it and how you predict it. I know there's tampering going on. I know there's stuff that's going on that's probably under the table at some places, but it is a real challenge if you're a player personnel guy in a college football situation.
Yeah, you got a lot to monitor, Alan. And for Purdue, if you go back to August, and they've had, by my count, 12 players go in the portal. And I chronicled in the recent thing I posted today, my 3-2-1, the player, all 12 players, who they are, and the guys who've landed somewhere, where they've landed. And I want to say maybe of those 12, Alan, maybe 6 have new homes. The other 6 are still waiting in limbo. And that's the thing, I guess I wouldn't jump in the portal unless I knew I had something waiting for me. It's like quitting a job and not having a job. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Again, maybe that's, everybody's different. Maybe some guys are forced to leave. I'm not sure how all that works, to be honest with you. But I certainly wouldn't want to give up a free education. I would put up with being a third string tight end if it meant I got a chance to get a free college education. I wouldn't jump in the portal and be in limbo. But again, it's just fascinating, and it's not going to change. You can shake your fist at it and curse it all you want. The portal's here, NIL's here, and the guys who figure it out the quickest and navigate it the best are the teams and the programs that are going to succeed, obviously.
Well, you and I are both Purdue graduates. I wouldn't trade. I just don't understand guys that would trade, that aren't playing where they are at Purdue, that would trade a Purdue degree for some other place. But I'm biased, so I'll say that from that standpoint. All right, quarterback is always a discussion point and always something to watch in spring football. Of course, Purdue knows its destination with Aiden O'Connell, a second-team All-Big Ten guy that's one of the great stories in college football. But you got to find somebody else to back him up, and there hasn't been a season in recent memory where Purdue hasn't had to play due to injuries or whatever, a backup quarterback. What do you see there? I mean, obviously Jack Plummer is off has entered the portal and is gone, but you've got some other names out there that are going to bear watching in spring ball.
Yeah. I know I've looked this up and wrote it in the past, Alan. The last season where Purdue they started the same quarterback from game 1 to game 12 was the 2016 season, when David Blau started every game for the Boilermakers. Every year Jeff Brom's been here, at least 2 quarterbacks have started games for Purdue. And honestly, Alan, this will only be the second time in Jeff Brom's tenure at Purdue that there will be no training camp quarterback drama. There will be no competition. 2019 was Elijah Sindler in the story. It was his job. And of course, Elijah started the season. Remember the Nevada game. And then he got hurt against Vanderbilt. Then his season ended against Minnesota. But again, so this will only be the second time Purdue knows in spring football and in August camp who its number one quarterback is going to be. Aiden O'Connell in the story. There's some comfort in that. Heck of a player, heck of a person. He just got engaged. Everybody probably saw that recently. A volleyball player. And he's back on, he's on social media too, Alan. How about that?
Yeah.
He's looking for NIL opportunities. I do know that.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
But I digress. So yeah, Aiden's the guy and special player. And I think him coming back makes Purdue a legit contender in the Big Ten West. Probably maybe a preseason top 25 team. Who's the backup? Austin Burton's going to return, obviously. Will Michael Alamo make a move? And of course, we all know the four-star player, Brady Allen, from Fort Branch, Indiana, Gibson Southern High School, is enrolled. He is on campus. He will go through spring football, Allen. I think ideally, Brady just sort of gets his seasoning this year, learns the ropes, so to speak, maybe gets his feet wet in a couple games, and he's your quarterback in 2023. So, Alamo, Burton, again, it'll be interesting to see who can really emerge and win that job. Michael Alamo, to me, Alan, this is a big year for him, right? This will be his third year on campus in the fall. Be a redshirt sophomore, and he's still yet to throw a pass in a game. And is he ready to be the number 2 quarterback? Is he going to be able to hold off Brady Allen's charge that's coming? So again, Michael Alamo is a guy I think really needs to maybe start to assert himself, and we'll see if he can take that next step in his evolution in this spring and in the fall too.
Yeah, storylines aplenty. There always is when you have a roster of 85 scholarship players, you're going to have storylines, and Tom does a great job chronicling those for goldenblack.com, and they're grateful for his work. All right, we'll put an end to this show. We want to thank Rob Hummel for segment 1, Brian Newbert as well in seg 2. Interesting stuff. Lots going on in the Purdue basketball world. Of course, Tom, appreciate your efforts, and I want to thank also our sponsors, Triple X, on the hill, but on the level of Purdue tradition since 1929. State Farm agent Trent Johnson, the trentismyagent.com. Hilton Garden Inn when tomorrow's a big day. State HGI tonight. Thanks also to, it's been a challenging couple of days at WLFI with all this weather and trying to deal with that. But Gordon Jackson and the folks at WLFI for making this happen today. We will be back next week with another exciting show of Golden Black Live. There'll be something to talk about. And then some as we inch closer to the start of spring football. And of course, the Purdue basketball schedule gets deeper into February. What a great story that will be. Interesting one throughout the next few weeks. So Tom, thanks again. We'll look forward to seeing. Thank you all for viewing and listening, watching, however you watch this live stream. We appreciate that. And we'll see you next week on Golden Black Live.